Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We're joined by Stephanie Carson once again here live on the podcast and on the Zoomcast today. I get to see her beautiful face. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified NET practitioner, which we're going to dive more into depth on today, a clinical EFT practitioner as well. And the name of her company, Holistic Family Therapy and Wellness. And you're based out of Chino, California. Would you mind saying hello to everyone today, Miss Stephanie?
Hello. And yes, I am based out of Chino, California. For purposes of my licensure as an LMFT, it's California state only. But for some of the holistic techniques, NET being one, which is what we will be talking about today, those are worldwide. So that's fun because that is something that I can reach out and help people throughout the world with some of these holistic techniques. And I love them. Those are just my favorite things to do with clients. So I'm excited to be here and talk about that.
We're excited to have you. And it's Holistic Therapy and Wellness, spelled WHOLISTIC, therapy and wellness.com. Any other form of contact you want to share before we begin?
Website's always a good place to start. For those people that still believe in utilizing the telephone, I do have an office number, and that's 909-364-1104, and it is a confidential voicemail. So clients are always welcome to contact me there. They can also reach out to me via email, and that's just nice and simple. Steph MFT, that's M for marriage, F for family, T for therapist, @verizon.net.
Beautiful. All right. Before we begin our specifics, tell us a little bit overall about what you do so our listeners can get to know you.
Sure. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I began my education with that back in the late 90s, I guess. So I'm indicating a little bit more about my age, but I've been practicing since then. And probably more recently, right around 2017 is when I started diving more into the holistic techniques. So with traditional counseling, I work with individuals, families, couples. I have some additional specialties working with parents who have lost children. I did have a book that was published on that back in, I believe it was 2009. And that's more clinical based, but it does allow for sometimes parents to go through and understand the complexities of that. And then I do, stress management, depression, anxiety, trauma, sexual assault, everything in between. And then with and that is state-based only. So that's only California-based. And I offer it virtually as well as in person. And that's just because of the licensure. The holistic techniques, so for NET, which we'll talk about today, and then EFT, that'll be our next week's topic. Those are offered because those are offered outside of the licensure as a licensed therapist. Those are offered to clients statewide, worldwide, throughout. So, and those are offered again virtually as well as in office.
Beautiful. Love it. Wow. Do a lot of work, and it's always to help. And I know we have a lot of certain techniques that you use, and one in particular today that you wanted to kind of focus on. Would you mind sharing?
Absolutely. So NET, otherwise known as neuro-emotional technique, is a beautiful holistic technique. It was developed by Dr. Scott Walker and also co-founded by his wife, Dr. Deb Walker. And they are chiropractors in the beautiful city of San Diego, California. And Dr. Scott started developing that technique right around the mid-1980s after just doing some work, seeing patients that continued to have, for chiropractic world, the subluxations, just really struggling to either heal or maintain the progress. And so he started looking into different things. The meridian system that we see, it's very well known in the Chinese medicine, especially when you think of acupuncture and acupressure, it uses that meridian system. There's different energy psychologies out there. So he started doing this practice, and this was before it was even called NET, and realized that it was really helping his patients to progress and to maintain some of the progress. And so the idea then just kind of sprouted. People saw it, they were hearing about it, and they wanted to know. So he started training people in it. And what it does, and we call it NET for short, but again, it's neuro-emotional technique. It is a holistic technique that allows us to find and help the body resolve stress points. And so one of the things we know about stress, I know, right? It's the face.
Got a lot of them.
How does that work?
Yes. You piqued
I
my
mean, Jill, we know
attention.
no one has stress these days, right? No one stresses out these days. So unfortunately, we see a lot of stress and we don't know always how to handle that. Yes, we have meditation and we have breathing techniques and we have exercise, and those are all wonderful. But sometimes these neurological imbalances get stuck. And when they get stuck, no amount of breathing is going to breathe it out. We just keep kind of being stuck on that same neurological pattern. And those are what in the NET world we call neuroemotional complexes. And that's those unresolved mind-body stress patterns that lead us to have the same response. And so when you think of it, all we talk about in this technique is about the client or the patient's emotional reality. And so it doesn't matter whether the stressor, whether the threat is perceived or if it's real. In our world, in that moment, it's our emotional reality. And so that's what NET works through. It's dealing with that. So a perfect example is a nightmare. Whether we have them or we watch our children go through them, we can wake up, or our kids can wake up from a nightmare and they're sweating and they're screaming and they're crying and they're thrashing around and they are insistent, or we in our own world are insistent, this just happened. And that's because it's our reality, even though, as well-intentioned parents, right, we'll say, no, you're fine, sweetie, you're safe, it's in your bed, you're home. It's like, no, just gonna eat me, or I remember, just funny story on myself was, I remember waking up one night, I had a nightmare about something and it involved my husband, and I woke up and I looked at him and I just punched him and he's like, what's that for? I'm like, I don't know, but I had a nightmare and you did something not nice.
Yeah.
And that's because it's our emotional reality. So NET helps us to go in, and through the use of what's called manual muscle testing, we are able to measure that stress response or that physiological response just based on whether it's a physical entry or an auditory entry. And meaning we can look at, oh man, I've had this crank in my neck. I've gotten a massage. My chiropractor's adjusted my neck. My primary care doctor prescribed muscle relaxants and pain meds, and it still is there. And with NET, we can actually use a manual muscle test to see, is there an emotional component to it? And oftentimes there is. And through the use of this muscle testing, which looks weird, I know people who are listening can't see it, but we're using your arm and we're just, honestly, it's just a light pressure we use.
Okay.
And when the body is not okay or something is going on, that arm will go down. It's called an inhibited muscle response. And all it means is something's not right. Something in our body is holding on to this unresolved mind-body pattern, and it's indicating that something's off. And so it needs to be resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're able to do that with NET.
Interesting.
Yeah. It looks a little weird sometimes for people to see, but those people that have experienced chiropractic, a lot of chiropractors these days use some form of muscle testing. Sometimes it can look like it's us talking to the body. It is not. We are actually just using that muscle test to see what the body's response is based on those stimulus. So if you think about it, it's the same as, I don't even know if they do this anymore, to be honest with you, Jill, but when we used to take our kids to the doctor and they'd have the physical and they, do the patella reflex when they tap the knee.
Yeah, they tap the knee with that little, it's an archaic
that little-
looking stone,
right.
like with like a leather strap, like from like the Flintstones. Yeah.
Exactly.
What is it called? What is the name of it?
I don't remember. I just know it's the patella reflex, but I
That's
don't know what the
patella
little,
reflex. Okay, the little stone is called. They'll call it the
I know the
Fred
little
Flintstone
patella
stone.
rubber thing.
Okay.
But, when the doctor would do it, it's not something that we see it coming and so we kick, nor is it something that they hit the reflex and we think about it like, oh, and then we kick. It's just an automatic response. And that's the same that happens with our body, with these stress responses, with this manual muscle test. When there's something that is a reflex, a response in the body, it automatically happens. And that arm goes down. And that is an indication that the body's reacting to something. And one of the things I'll do with you in just a minute is give you a little bit of an example of what it feels like by using what's called the FAST technique. But when we're doing actual NET, and NET is something some practitioners do virtually. We're trained just to do it in office. So I only do it in person in office because it's hard to do muscle testing when the person's not sitting in front of you. Some people have created some really good ways of doing it. I don't use it that way. So when you're doing it, it can be an okay statement. So I'll use one many people. I'm okay exercising. I'm okay working out. I'm okay losing weight. I'm okay eating healthy. Now, most people who come and have those goals, that's exactly what they want, right? They're like, of course.
No.
More often than not, when we have them say that while doing the muscle test, the arm goes down, which means something in their brain is not okay.
Yeah.
And it's always fun to watch because the person's like, no, but I do want to lose weight. I do want to, I believe you. I know you do. But something in your body might not be okay with that. It might be a safety issue. If they're a sexual assault victim, they don't want to look healthy and beautiful again because maybe that was connected to what they were told when they were being raped. If it's something that was when I work with parents who have lost kids, I'm okay even though my child's gone. Well,
Yeah.
of course, that's not what they want. No one would want that. But it's what their reality is. And so it's getting them to be okay with what is, even though it's not their preference. And even though it's not something they would ever choose for themselves. And so, or we'll do things like I told you with the neck thing, we'll have them touch that spot and then we'll test the arm and it might go down, which indicates, or it might not, but maybe when they were just testing it before, it was the opposite. So we look for a difference in that muscle test. And again, that tells us something in the brain is saying, I'm not okay with this, or something's up, or there's an emotional stressor here that please help me fix it. And that's what we're able to do with NET.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Did I tell you about my carpal tunnel stuff?
Oh, you did not.
Oh, okay. Because I'm going for physical therapy now 3 times a week. I have, well, the nerve test is happening next week, but
Okay.
I've started the PT for the tendonitis arthritis. It's from, I do it a lot. I did a lot of heavy moving, like stoves, dishwashers to clean. I clean a lot and then type a lot on the phone a lot for work. Lo and behold, years ago, I couldn't drive stick shift anymore. It hasn't bothered me in years. Now I have this flare up and now I'm doing the PT and it's killing me. Right. And then it's getting better though with the therapy. Then on top of it all, I found out I'm 45, right? I have a 6 and 8-year-old. I have 2 hernias in my stomach and my groin from I do a lot of manual labor around my house. I lift into the attic, I decorate, I clean, I'm a she-man, which I'm realizing I really should not think that, but I don't have a choice. So I overexert it. And so I need a surgery now for the 2 hernias. This I'm praying I don't need a surgery, but I just feel like physically I've been down the past like 2 months. And then I look at what I was going through in my life. So much stress over a pool trying to get built, of my boyfriend breaking up with me, of me trying to manage the kids, the sport, like all these. And I realize I've been very distant emotionally. So I'm just thinking about what you're saying, because there's other stressors that could be affecting my conditions, not just the fact that I'm overworking this area, but what led to this, or what right mentally could have my stress and anxiety and all that weakness made my body weak. Is that is that how you describe it, Stephanie? Do you mind me?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Because also, and we can actually do a little bit of fun with that today, if you're willing to take a little risk with me. But yes, because when we think of it, when our bodies, when we have an injury, when we have a surgery, when we break a bone, there's a scar and we can see that scar. And every once in a while, for whatever reason, that bone aches or that scar hurts or something that we physically done. But sometimes we will find that there's those emotional scars that get triggered, and we don't always know why, because we don't necessarily, if someone knew, oh, this is going to trigger me, the first thing we're going to do is avoid that very thing.
Yeah.
But we don't know we're triggered or there is a trigger until sometimes we've walked straight into it.
Interesting.
And so with our bodies do hold on to those stressors, and the emotional stressors are often played in our physical pain. And so I would not be surprised, if you were in my office today, I would do the muscle test on having you touch the part of your wrist from the carpal tunnel, having you touch the hernias. Now, I'm glad you're definitely getting that taken care of, because that's what we always say. Please, first and foremost, if there's a physical complaint, check with your doctor first. But sometimes I do get clients and like, I have gone through every single doctor and everyone said I'm fine. And that was my experience when I was going through some of my stuff after having my daughter and having the infertility and having the miscarriages and having the postpartum depression. And every one of my doctors, they were doing the hormone. Oh, you're fine. Your labs look great. But I feel not fine. I don't feel well, and something's going on. And it was actually an NET practitioner who helped to figure out not just some of the physical stuff that the doctors had missed, but also some of the emotional components that I didn't even realize connected.
Wow.
And so these techniques, the holistic techniques, are so beautiful because they really allow us to gently to go in, to find stressors, to allow the body to heal itself at its own rate, with the client being in charge of that process. And so kind of like what we spoke about last time, being trauma informed, it's so gentle because clients are actually able to be in control of, what do you want to work on today? Does this feel safe for you? Is this your goal for yourself? Because it's not up to me to tell you what your goal is. You know, I could say, oh, Joe, you really need to work on this. You need to do this. Oh, that carpal tunnel. And nor will I tell you I'm going to heal it, because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a magician, but I can assist your body in its healing process. And so it's a journey that we get to go on with our clients. And it's so beautiful. And honestly, for me, it's so fun to watch clients engage in this. And then they have kind of like at the very beginning, that deer in headlights look at, what just happened? You know, or how did this come up? Because we just don't know what our bodies do when they're connecting emotional stress to physical pain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Just remind us how we can reach you, Stephanie.
Absolutely. So my website is holistictherapyandwellness.com, and that is holistic with a W. Phone number here at the office, which is confidential, is 909-364-1104, or you're always welcome to send me an email, and that's stephmft@verizon.net.
Awesome. All right. We still got time to chat here. So what else is on tap for today, literally?
Well, are you willing to have a little bit of fun, play around?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. So I would love to talk to you a little bit about the FAST technique. And FAST stands for First Aid Stress Tool. So for listeners who are interested, you can actually look that up exactly there, firstaidstresstool.com, or the NET website is netmindbody.com, and that will have a link. And so the FAST technique is a technique that I teach all of my clients, usually the very first session. And it stands for First Aid Stress Tool because it really is a very quick, fast way to deal with stress. So there's a few things that I'll teach you before, and then we'll practice. So it works with the meridian system, kind of as I described before. The NET does come from a variety of different areas, and one of them is using the meridian system from Chinese medicine. And so we use what's called meridian access points, also known as pulse points, and those are right on the inside of the wrists. So pretty much in line with the thumb. I'll try to describe it so for our auditory listeners, they can actually know what we're talking about. So the easiest way to access that is if you put one palm up, and so your palm is just face up. You take your other hand and you scoop under that wrist and bring your fingertips around to where those fingertips are right in line with that thumb, right under the bend of the wrist. So you'll feel that bend of the wrist. That's pretty much where I tell clients you want to put your fingers.
That a tendon? What is that?
It's the meridians. It's the meridian system. You will feel the tendon.
I don't know the difference. Yeah. I'm like, is that okay? So it's like the big, thick, it feels like rubber bands.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And you won't be flexing it when we do the technique, but I let people know that that's where you want it to be. And sometimes people worry about the pressure. One of the things I found with this technique is if something is really distressing to you, your body will hold a little tighter just until you process it. If it's not as distressing, it might be a lighter pressure. For this technique, it really doesn't matter. So now the fun part is your pinky doesn't really have a space here, but I tell people, put it down, leave it up. It's up to you. It's whatever's most comfortable. Okay. Once we have that connection with those 3 points, because each of these 3 points represents a different meridian on the body or in the body, We take our hand, keeping those points connected, and we put our hand horizontally across our forehead. And you want to make sure that it is fully covering the forehead, because our emotional points are right in this spot, right above our eyebrows, our eyes, halfway in through our forehead, between the hairline and the eyebrows. So we want to make sure that we are connecting these meridian access points with those emotional points. And then the final step is to breathe. Now, I do encourage clients to usually relax their shoulders a little bit, because when we get the curvature in the spine, it allows our limbic system, which is the emotional center of our brain, to be engaged. When we're sitting up in this straight posture, it's more of our cognitive, our thought process. So when we relax and curve that spine, it brings in, almost like when you think of in utero, it brings in that limbic system, that emotional system. Okay. So here's where you get to have some fun. I know you talked about if you're feeling a little bit of the wrist pain, or do you have any of that right now?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was at physical therapy this morning for the exact spot you mentioned here. We're working on this area, this area. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Please.
Okay.
Wrist,
So
hand, arm. Go ahead.
Okay, that's okay. So if you want to have a little bit of fun, we'll just see. And I make no promises, because if there's not an emotional component here, it's not going to work. And it's not
Okay.
because the technique doesn't work. It just means there's not an emotional connection.
Okay.
But describe to me the pain that you're feeling right now in that arm.
It's, do you call it dull?
Okay.
It's like I was squeezed something too hard. So
Uh-huh.
like when but now I'm not even squeezing anything, and it just hurts here.
And it's just
and
hurting.
here. It's pulling. Yeah. Here,
Okay.
here. Uh-huh.
Okay. And is there, sometimes this might be a funny question. I use this to really get clients engaged in the process. So is there a color? Is there any movement that you could attach to that sensation? And you, if you don't have any.
Like every time I text, which I have to text, right?
Right.
That's when it really hurts. Like if I go like this. So if I put my hand like this, ow,
Ouch.
ow.
Okay.
Holding a steering wheel, that type of motion.
That type of motion is just, okay. So let's rate it before we do the technique. On a scale 0 to 10, where 0 is pain's not even there, and 10 is really uncomfortable. This is bringing me to tears. Where would you put it?
I'm a 6. I was at
You're
a
a 6.
10. I was at a 10 last week. So I'm at a 6
Okay.
right now.
So all I want you to do for this technique is just notice the pain, notice the 6. You're not going to do anything. I don't want you to aggravate the pain, but once you feel connected to it, it almost feels evil, right? I'm telling you to connect to the pain before we try to get rid of it.
No.
I want you to take whichever hand. We're going to do it on both. So whichever hand you want to start with, palm up. You're going to scoop under and connect those 3 points we talked about. Perfect. Mm-hmm. Take that hand horizontally across your forehead while you're holding these points. Relax the shoulders, and you're just going to breathe, and just allow your body, as you're doing that, to just give it permission to move whatever might come up. Your goal right now is just to keep breathing. And you might notice as you're doing this, things can shift. Sometimes when we do it with physical pain or sensations, you can feel a shifting in the pain. Sometimes it intensifies. If it does, you just keep breathing and let it go. And when it feels like maybe it's subsided, it's lessened a little bit, it's become neutral, then I'll have you release the points, and we'll do it on the next side.
Okay.
Perfect. So now take your other hand, scoop underneath, get those 3 points engaged. Perfect. Hand across your forehead. We'll go ahead and relax those shoulders. And same thing, you're just taking nice natural breaths. And just allowing your body to do what it needs to do. If you notice it intensify, just keep breathing. And when it seems like it relaxes or becomes neutral, you can release the points. Perfect. Now, notice the pain in your wrist. You were a 6. Does it feel any different?
Feels better.
Okay. What number would you give it? Your face is, I love the face. That's the face I love seeing on my clients. They're like, what did you just do?
It feels like a 3. It doesn't feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Now there's no magic involved.
Okay.
This is really what you just did. So traditional breathing techniques really just try to get us to relax.
Okay.
What NET does, and in this case, the FAST technique assists us in doing, is because we're holding those points, the meridian points, the emotional points, and we're breathing, we are actually assisting our body in releasing that stressor. So you've breathed it out in its own way. So we're not just breathing through something, we're actually breathing it out. And so the 3 points you went down was the emotional component that's connected. Obviously you have carpal tunnel and there's issues that you're dealing with physically, which is why you're in physical therapy. But I would encourage you with this, when that acts up, do the fast technique and see if it gives it any relief, because sometimes just allowing yourself to process the emotion attached to physical pain keeps it at least more bearable.
Keeps it
until it
yeah.
heals.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Oh, you're welcome. Isn't that
so
fun?
cool. I learned a lot today, all these different techniques, and I got to partake in one. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being vulnerable with me. I appreciate it.
No, same here. Thank you. And by the way, the work that you do, could you share how we can reach you if someone wants to reach out to you for this type of work? Which this is virtual. This can be done anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could be in California. I could be in Australia. Perfect.
Absolutely. So yes, so you feel free to reach out and you'll read more about these techniques on my website.
Perfect.
And that is holistictherapyandwellness.com. That's holistic with a W. And that's because we treat the whole person. Or phone number 909-364-1104, or feel free to shoot me an email at stephmft@verizon.net.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for today. Take it over to my mouse now, where it will probably ache more because I have to put it on the right rest. That feels better. Thank you.
You're
all
welcome.
right. Thank you so much. You have a great day. Okay.
You too.
And to all of our listeners, thank you. Stay tuned. More of the show is on the way.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.